In this episode, we are turning to a topic that often grows quietly inside organizations until it becomes too widespread to ignore. And that topic is evaluating shadow IT risks and controls. For a brand new learner, shadow IT may sound mysterious or even dramatic, but the basic idea is simple. It refers to technology, systems, applications, services, or data handling practices that employees or departments use without going through the organization's normal review, approval, or governance processes. Sometimes that means a team starts using an online file sharing tool on its own. Sometimes it means a manager buys a software subscription directly with a department budget. And sometimes it means staff build local spreadsheets or databases that become important without ever being treated like formal business systems. Auditors care about shadow IT because it often reflects a gap between what the business needs and what formal IT is providing. And that gap can create real problems in security, compliance, cost, reliability, and accountability. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A useful place to begin is by understanding why shadow IT exists at all. New learners sometimes assume it appears only because employees are careless or rebellious, but that explanation is usually too shallow. In many cases, people turn to unapproved technology because they are trying to solve a real business problem quickly. They may be frustrated with slow approvals, limited functionality in existing tools, poor user experience, or the absence of a solution that fits the work they need to perform. A team might adopt a new collaboration platform because the approved one feels too limited, or a department might create a local reporting tool because centralized reporting is too slow for operational decisions. None of that automatically makes shadow IT good, but it does explain why it is persistent. Auditors evaluate shadow IT not only to identify policy violations, but also to understand whether the organization's official processes are so rigid, slow, or incomplete that employees feel pushed toward informal solutions in order to get their jobs done. It also helps to define what counts as shadow IT in a broad and realistic way. Many people think only of cloud software bought without approval, but the concept is wider than that. It can include unapproved software as a service, SaaS, platforms, personal messaging tools used for business communication, unsanctioned file sharing services, unmanaged mobile applications, locally developed spreadsheets that perform important calculations, small databases maintained by one department, and even automation scripts or reports created without formal oversight. In some environments, shadow IT also includes hardware purchased outside normal channels, such as wireless devices, storage equipment, or personal technology used for work in unsupported ways. The important point is that shadow IT is not defined only by the type of technology. It is defined by the lack of visibility, governance, approval, or control that should normally accompany business technology use. That is why the same application could be perfectly acceptable in one case and shadow IT in another, depending on whether it passed through appropriate review and management. One of the most important lessons for beginners is that shadow IT is not always low quality or obviously dangerous on the surface. In fact, part of the reason it spreads so easily is that it often works well enough to look helpful. A department may become more productive after adopting an unapproved tool, or a spreadsheet may produce reports that management begins to rely on heavily. That visible usefulness can make shadow IT feel harmless or even beneficial. The deeper issue is that useful technology can still create unmanaged risk when it is operating outside established governance. An application may store sensitive information without proper protections. A spreadsheet may contain important formulas that nobody reviews, or a third-party service may have contract terms that expose the organization to compliance and legal problems. Auditors therefore look beyond whether the tool is popular or whether users like it. They ask whether the technology has been assessed, whether risks are known, whether controls are applied, and whether the organization would still be comfortable if the solution became more widely used or failed unexpectedly. Security risk is often the first concern people think of, and for good reason. Shadow IT can introduce unknown access paths, weak authentication, uncontrolled data storage, poor encryption practices, and limited oversight of how information moves between users, devices, and external services. If a department begins using an unapproved platform for business data, the organization may not know where that data is stored, who can access it, what logging exists, or how incidents would be handled. In some cases, the application may be secure enough in a general sense, but still misaligned with the organization's own requirements for access control, monitoring, backup, or retention. Auditors pay close attention to this because a security control environment depends heavily on visibility. If the organization does not know a tool exists, it cannot govern access properly, monitor its use, or include it in risk review and incident planning. Shadow IT therefore weakens security not only through specific flaws, but through the broader problem of hidden technology operating outside normal protective oversight. Privacy and compliance issues also sit close to the center of shadow IT evaluation. An unapproved tool may collect or store personal information, financial data, regulated records, or confidential business material in ways the organization has not assessed properly. Staff members may upload data to a cloud service because it makes collaboration easier without realizing that the platform's storage, retention, jurisdiction, or subcontractor model creates legal or regulatory exposure. A department might use an external form builder or data analysis service for efficiency without confirming whether the information being processed belongs in that environment at all. Auditors study these situations because compliance failures often come from informal workarounds rather than deliberate misconduct. If the organization has not classified data clearly, trained employees well, or provided practical approved alternatives, shadow IT can become the path through which sensitive information flows into places that were never meant to hold it. The risk is not only technical. It is also about governance, responsibility, and the organization's ability to prove that information is being handled appropriately. Operational risk is another major concern, even though it sometimes receives less attention than security or privacy. Shadow IT may solve a short-term need, but it often lacks the support structure, documentation, backup planning, or continuity controls expected of formal business technology. A department may depend heavily on an unofficial application managed by one employee who built it over time. If that person leaves, gets sick, or changes roles, the process may stall because no one else understands the tool or knows how to maintain it. A shared spreadsheet might become essential for tracking work, yet contain fragile formulas, hidden tabs, or manual steps that make it highly vulnerable to error. Auditors evaluate these issues because shadow IT often creates concentration risk around individuals, informal processes, and undocumented knowledge. Something can be operationally useful and still be dangerously brittle. The more business dependence grows, the more serious the risk becomes if the tool breaks, disappears, or produces incorrect results without anyone noticing quickly enough. Cost and efficiency issues are also part of the picture, although beginners do not always see them right away. At first, shadow IT can look inexpensive because a team buys a small subscription, uses a free tool, or builds something in-house without waiting for a larger project. Over time, though, the organization may end up paying for duplicate services, fragmented licenses, overlapping tools, and unofficial support effort that is never tracked clearly. Different departments may purchase similar platforms without knowing it, or a company may continue funding enterprise tools while staff prefer parallel solutions outside those approved systems. That duplication increases expense and weakens the value of standardization. Auditors consider these issues because hidden technology use makes it difficult for management to understand what the organization is really spending, what capabilities it already has, and where consolidation might reduce both cost and risk. Shadow IT is therefore not only a security or compliance concern. It can also be a sign that technology investments are not aligned well enough with real user needs. An important teaching point is that shadow IT usually reflects both user behavior and organizational design. If the response to shadow IT is only to punish employees or tighten rules without understanding the underlying causes, the problem often goes underground rather than disappearing. People generally adopt informal tools because they are trying to move faster, collaborate better, analyze information more easily, or bypass friction they see as unreasonable. Auditors therefore look for root causes as well as visible violations. Are approval processes too slow? Are official tools too difficult to use? Are business units excluded from technology planning? Is the support model so unresponsive that teams feel they have no choice but to improvise? Those questions matter because strong control is not just about saying no more often. It is about creating an environment where approved solutions are practical enough, responsive enough, and aligned enough with business realities that people do not feel compelled to build their own unsupported alternatives in the first place. Good controls for shadow IT begin with visibility. The organization cannot manage what it does not know exists, so one of the first goals is developing reasonable awareness of unsanctioned tools, services, and locally managed solutions that support business activity. That does not mean achieving perfect visibility instantly, especially in large and complex environments. It means creating processes that help bring hidden technology into view through inventories, procurement oversight, user education, data governance, access review, network awareness, and conversations with business units about how work is actually being done. Auditors evaluate whether management has realistic mechanisms for identifying shadow IT and whether those mechanisms are tied to follow-up action. A mature organization does not simply publish a policy and assume hidden tools will reveal themselves. It looks for signs in expense patterns, user practices, support requests, vendor interactions, and business workflows. Visibility is essential because without it, the organization is left in a reactive position, discovering risks only after data exposure, service disruption, or audit findings make the hidden technology impossible to ignore. Once shadow IT is identified, the next question is not always whether it must be eliminated immediately. Sometimes the better response is to assess the specific tool, understand the business purpose, and decide whether it should be approved, replaced, controlled more carefully, or retired over time. This is where risk-based thinking becomes important. A simple personal task app used for low-value reminders does not present the same concern as an unapproved platform storing customer records or a spreadsheet driving significant financial calculations. Auditors want to see whether the organization distinguishes among different levels of risk and responds proportionately rather than treating every case as equally severe. A mature control environment may allow some tools to be formalized after review, while requiring other uses to stop because the exposure is too high or the functionality already exists in approved systems. What matters is that the decision is deliberate and documented. Shadow IT becomes especially dangerous when it is discovered but then left in a gray area where everyone knows it exists and nobody takes clear responsibility for governing or resolving it. Governance, ownership, and policy are also essential controls in this area. The organization should have clear expectations about how technology is selected, what review is required, how exceptions are handled, and who is responsible for approving, monitoring, or challenging new business tools. If policies are too vague, staff may not realize they are stepping outside normal governance. If they are too rigid and disconnected from business realities, employees may ignore them. Auditors therefore evaluate not only whether policies exist, but whether they are practical, understandable, and supported by real ownership across IT, security, procurement, legal, privacy, and business leadership. Good governance also defines what happens when shadow IT is found. Who reviews the risk? Who decides whether the tool can continue temporarily? Who communicates with the business unit? Who ensures that replacement, migration, or formal approval happens if needed? Without clear governance, shadow IT cases tend to linger, and lingering informal solutions are often where unmanaged risk becomes normalized over time. Training and culture matter more than many beginners expect. Employees need to understand not only that shadow IT can create problems, but also why those problems matter and how to seek approved alternatives without feeling blocked at every turn. If training consists only of warnings, people may assume the organization cares more about control than about helping them work effectively. Better training explains how unapproved tools can affect data protection, support, continuity, compliance, and accountability, while also pointing users toward practical channels for requesting new capabilities. Auditors evaluate whether the organization has built a culture where business units and formal IT can communicate openly about needs rather than operating in separate worlds. A culture of silence is risky because it encourages hidden adoption and delayed escalation when problems arise. A healthier culture makes it easier for employees to raise needs early, seek exceptions transparently, and collaborate on solutions that preserve both business agility and reasonable control. A simple example makes the topic easier to picture. Imagine a marketing team that starts using an external campaign management service because the approved corporate platform is slow to update and lacks features the team wants. At first, the choice seems smart because the team moves faster and gets results. Over time, though, customer contact data is uploaded to the service, different staff members create separate accounts, no one reviews the contract terms, and reporting from the tool becomes important to leadership decisions. When a question later arises about data retention, access control, or accuracy of the reported results, the organization discovers that the service was never reviewed by security, privacy, procurement, or legal. The issue is no longer just that the team used an unapproved tool. The bigger problem is that business dependence grew faster than governance. An auditor looking at this situation would examine how the tool was adopted, what data it handles, who owns the risk, why the approved process was bypassed, and what controls should have existed before the service became embedded in normal operations. From an audit perspective, evaluating shadow IT risks and controls means looking for both symptoms and causes. The auditor may review policies, procurement records, expense reports, inventories, data handling practices, interviews with business and technology staff, support patterns, and evidence of how discovered shadow IT cases are assessed and managed. The goal is not to create an unrealistic expectation that every hidden tool can be removed instantly. Instead, the audit seeks to determine whether the organization can identify shadow IT reasonably well, understand its risk, respond proportionately, and reduce the conditions that cause it to spread. A strong environment usually shows visible governance, workable request channels, collaboration between business units and formal IT, risk-based review of discovered tools, and clear paths for approval, replacement, or retirement. A weak environment usually shows fragmented ownership, rigid or slow official processes, poor visibility into actual technology use, and a pattern where informal solutions quietly become critical before anyone in governance notices. As we close, the main lesson is that evaluating shadow IT risks and controls is really about asking whether the organization understands the difference between unofficial convenience and governable technology, and whether it can bring hidden tools into view before they create larger business problems. Shadow IT is rarely just a story about employees breaking rules. More often, it is a sign that unmet business needs, weak visibility, slow processes, or poor communication have created room for unmanaged technology to grow. Auditors study this area because shadow IT can affect security, privacy, continuity, cost, and accountability all at once, especially when informal solutions become important without formal recognition. Strong organizations do not respond only by saying no. They create practical controls, clearer governance, better user options, and healthier collaboration so innovation does not have to happen in the dark. For a new learner, that is the key idea worth remembering. Shadow IT is not just hidden technology. It is hidden risk mixed with hidden business need, and good evaluation requires understanding both sides at the same time.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.